You're listening to the Lux Life Discovered podcast, where we talk with people who are living a lifestyle that reflects their passion, because we believe everyone should be living their best life, their Lux Life. The show is hosted by Rick Steiner with Steiner Event Group, a premier national event planning company, and co-hosted by Shannon Richmond, the Vice President of the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications of future episodes. The show is produced by 30A Media and is broadcast on your favorite podcast outlets, as well as YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TVs, and other major brand smart TVs.
Hello, I'm Rick Steiner with Lux Life Discovered, and my co-host is Shannon Richmond with the Panama City Beach Chamber of Commerce.
Always glad to be here.
Well, good, and it's always great to have you. Our guest today is Darren Paltrowitz, and so Darren, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be connecting with you both. And on this show, you always have great guests, except for me.
No, I was, as we were talking earlier, I didn't put a title with you when I introduced you just then, because it's like, I said, it's like peeling an onion. There's so many different layers to what you do, and so much you've done over the course of time, from being a talk show host, podcaster, author, and that just covers a few things. So let's start with your podcast, and tell us how that originated, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Well, thank you for those kind words right there. My weekly show is called the Paltrocast with Darren Paltrowitz. It airs on over 80 stations a week, plus Apple, Spotify, all the places where you'd get your podcast. So it's audio and it's video/audio, depending on where you go. And that kind of dates back to when I was in high school, starting to do interviews. And I really started taking it seriously 5-6 years ago. And the pandemic is kind of when everything started becoming Zoom oriented, or video oriented rather. So it's like hey, we're doing a video conversation anyway. And at that point in time, the Tonight Show was basically a Zoom call. So you go, what's the difference between that and the Tonight Show? Yeah. And I just kept at it, didn't quit. Here we are.
So when you started in high school, tell us about that part, because you interview quite a few people and quite a few famous people. It's not just like, your guest list is impressive. So,
thanks.
So how did you get that bug to do this?
I wanted to get free tickets and free CDs because my parents wouldn't go, here's the money necessarily. So I found this local newspaper out where I was on Long Island and said, hey, do you need writers? And they did. And they gave me 4 or 5 CDs that no one wanted to cover. In other words, we don't want to do this. Here, let's give it to the kid. And I turned those in, and, thank you, sir, may I have another. They gave me more and more and more and more. And at a certain point, hey, I don't want to do this interview. Darren, do you want to do this interview? And so I started doing interviews that way. And after you send in the coverage and you go, here it is, usually the publicist or the manager or whoever's handling the talent goes, do you also want to speak to blank? You kind of realize, there's a roster. And then other publicists see that you spoke with those people, go, would you also like these? And then before you know it, you're in mailing lists and databases, and you have more pitches than you have time for.
Interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So
thank you.
That you have to be good at what you do, because it's like, I always tell people, you have to prepare for the opportunities before they come, because if you wait till they come, then you're too late. So obviously you did your leg work and back work really well for it to generate to this.
Yes and no. I think I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, like anybody has. They don't necessarily train you on how to do an interview well. And so once you become great at interviews, or reasonably good, that doesn't mean that you have all the etiquette in place to deal with the handlers, or that you have your pitch kits to be able to say to handlers, hey, this is who I am, and this is where my stuff can be seen, and this is great. So over time, you kind of pick up all the little skills so that you eventually become ready. But it's not something that anyone masters in a month or 2 months or 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a key part to it, being able to promote yourself and to sell yourself in the process. So.
And you two do that really well yourselves. So thanks again for having me.
Good job.
Well, thanks. We have fun with it
We
for
do.
sure. And we love talking to people with different, backgrounds, different talents, different interests. And so that just makes it much more
Oh,
interesting
gosh.
and fun for us.
And learning
Yeah.
and think you're learning one thing and you're learning, like you said, peeling back the onion, learning a ton of things.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
that kind of brings me to another part that you do. You're an author as well. So when did the writing begin and what brought that interest?
My parents have written dozens of books, so I was always around them doing that. My brother has written some books and workshops as well. And again, I'm around that. And I was writing articles back to when I was in high school. But writing a book and writing an article actually have almost nothing to do in common, except you're writing and there's deadlines. So my next book is a biography of David Lee Roth from Van Halen, and that comes out January 1st, 2024.
I need
And
that
that'll
book.
be my third book.
Remind me.
Yes.
I'm getting on the waiting list.
Thank you. It is now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble for pre-order. Looking forward to seeing the physical copy myself. Photographs from Kevin Baldus, the bass player from the band Lit, who photographed the last Van Halen show, and Eddie Van Halen's last photo session, I believe, or second to last photo session.
Wow.
So we've got some exclusives.
Do you want to hear something cool? My husband was the roadie for Van Halen. He would carry their speakers around back in the day. So he's going to die when I tell him about this book.
He will.
He's going to love that.
What's your husband's last name?
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yep.
Okay. So I have to do some research because I know I'm nerdy enough to know a lot of the names of the Van Halen crew members. I don't know the Richmond, but let him know that I'm looking for him.
Okay, you got it.
Oh, Steve will be like, I want to be in the book.
Oh my, yeah. He'll say, if it's not too late, can you make some edits? But they used to be at the houses over there with all of them partying, he's got some stories. You may want to chat with him.
I mean it. This is not one of those LA talk show things where I say, let's do lunch, and that means I never want to talk to you ever again. This is I will talk to Steve.
Oh,
looking
fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
We just made his day.
Yeah, his head's going to be so big.
Yeah.
But tell him the funny story about that when you introduced, or you talked about Steve and you said the wrong.
Yeah, I said the wrong band. I don't know what band I said. There's Van Halen. Oh, it was Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin,
and we were in Vegas, and I was like, oh, yeah, my husband was a roadie for Led. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, so can we come into this party? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And Steve goes, yeah, Van Halen, man. They're like, Van Halen? Anyways, I got it all wrong. So
he's got a party, though.
Yeah, we did get in the party.
Yeah, so hey.
Jackpot.
Winning.
There are some Led Zeppelin related things mentioned in my Van Halen book, and Led Zeppelin is kind of everywhere, but so is Van Halen.
Yeah.
So I sabotage a lot of my interviews by throwing in Van Halen questions to people who have nothing to do with Van Halen, but it's such a universal band. That it sometimes works. Like I was talking to the actor Thomas Hayden Church, and I said, who's your favorite band of all time? He goes, Van Halen, and went, jackpot.
Yes.
Right.
Now we have something to talk about.
The publicist is trying to get me off the line going, wrap it up. 'Cause
And you're like, no,
you're on these Zoom calls and you have the chat window open. They're going, wrap it up. But he's just talking about Van Halen to me. And
you were so excited. You were listening. Oh, yeah, Steve's going to be, we made his day. We made his year.
Yeah. He'll be worthless the rest of the year now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He'll think the book's about him. Yeah. So.
Oh, he'll have some good stories to share with you.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So how did the interest in Van Halen, how was your interest sparked there for this book?
Growing up as an MTV kid, even after David Lee Roth left Van Halen, they were still showing the Jump video all the time. And of course, their hits with Sammy Hagar kept coming. So Van Halen was an MTV band into arguably the late 90s. And along the way, I became fascinated with David Lee Roth. Did you ever read his autobiography?
I haven't. No.
I'm sure Steve has. Yeah.
His autobiography is basically the way he talks, as in like he talked it into a recorder. So it's written in total Dave speak. You've, for better and for worse, have never read a book like this before. And the book was great. He's done fascinating things over the years. And I don't know. He kept coming up in interviews. So I thought, you know what? I've got so many interviews about David Lee Roth and Van Halen stuff. Maybe it's time to write a book. And I showed dozens of literary agents, and all of them went, no, except one.
Really?
And the one who got it went, give me a pitch like this. And I gave him the pitch and he sold it within 48 hours. So all the lesson to be learned is you just need one literary agent who gets it. You don't need 20.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the good thing is you didn't give up and put it aside and think I can't do it because nobody wants to pursue it. So
in my 20s, I probably would have, but the older I get, the less likely I am to quit something, for better and for worse.
well, the same here. Yeah, we get set in our ways, and it's kind of like we're at a point to where we can kind of not have to take everything that comes and do the
You can be a
status
little more
quo.
selective.
Yes, yes. So that makes a difference.
Well said. And the book is such a long process. I'm used to taping interviews almost every day and posting them within 24 hours. And my first draft of the book I turned in September, and it's not coming out until January 2024. So it's really taught me a lot about patience.
So when something takes that long, how do you, because if we record too many episodes in advance, then by the time it airs, the person said we do 6 in a day. We've done that before. And then by the time that 6th week gets there for that last person, I mean, they're, anxious already. And so,
Yeah.
so we kind of try to keep it fresher than
Right.
that far out. But for something, a project like that, like when you turn it in and it's coming out months later, does that kill you also?
It does.
Yeah.
I find myself a lot saying the following 3-word phrase: thanks and sorry. And I just do that a lot. And I hope that by apologizing in advance that I've solved any problem that may come up in the future.
Right.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah. Well, that would be a tough spot to be in because you of course you want it published immediately and want all the recognition for what you've done, and it's kind of like you hit the pause button. It's kind of like,
you
oh,
wanna
it's going to
share
come
it.
later. Yeah.
It's like some good news that you want to share with
Exactly.
everybody.
Yeah.
And you're on, hold on for that. Oh,
Right. Yeah. Just have to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in turning in this book in September, David Lee Roth has come out of hibernation 2 or 3 times in the period since then. So I'd have to re-up the date the book and go I hope he doesn't do the hibernation thing again.
Right.
So I just had to come up with a kind of an ironclad ending that goes, will he, won't he?
Oh.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, because that would, because if your ending's already said, and then all of a sudden,
Here he is.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. That's, yeah.
Yeah, or I guess you can do the prologue kind of ending, but I just turned in another draft or pass on it a week and a half ago. Hopefully that's the last one. And again, hopefully he doesn't, I don't know, invent something important or decide to come out with the first new album in many years or something like that.
Or Steve Richmond doesn't give you some earth-shattering
Oh!
tidbit to put in. Yeah. So
if he does, then I guess I'll have to do an updated 5-year anniversary version starring Steve.
there you go.
Oh no!
I don't think we could take that from Steve's standpoint. No, you can't do that to us. No.
So
No, I'm genuinely excited to know Steve and what he knows, and curious if his take on Dave is similar to my take on Dave.
oh, that's gonna be so cool.
Yeah. Well, so what project, as far as will you take some time off before you write another book, or do you? How often do you write?
I write pretty much every day because I do articles. So far today, I've written 3. I think I've written 3 articles. There's a chance I might do 1 more.
Wow.
Tomorrow, it'll probably be a similar deal. Then over Memorial Day weekend, is it okay that I just stamped when this episode may have been?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. It'll probably air in a week or 2, but it's good. It's good.
Unless you air it in Memorial Day 2024.
True. We'll put it on hold until, a year from now. So, no, we won't do that to you.
When we're talking about a book that was finished a year ago, but it has come out 3 months. I don't know. We could play Back to the Future with all that. But
right.
Where's your favorite place to write? Is there you get in your zone, or how do you get in your zone to write and be creative?
Good question. I don't really do zones or inspiration anymore because I used to think I needed to feel inspired, and now I just kind of need a deadline to go, you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's whether I'm standing here or I'm about 4 feet away on the couch, or a hotel, or the bedroom, in bed on the laptop. I really can write anywhere. Like, I've written articles on my phone. I don't like that, but I've texted articles. It's just whatever the situation needs, you know?
And how do you decide what article you're going to, like, you wake up today, what article are you going to write about?
My Google Calendar would frighten just about anyone, where I heavily load all of my days and I color code things. And I just kind of break things down into 15 or 30-minute intervals and go, you're going to get this done.
Okay.
You have to get it done. And it gets done.
Well, if you don't, there are so many projects that everything would be kind of pushed off to the back burner and
then overload.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. I unfortunately schedule fun. That's how I operate.
Hey, that's good though. At least you do that, because a lot of people don't, and then they get burned out, and so that's
Unless you have my job. My job's just fun all the time.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That must be
Chamber
nice.
of Commerce, right?
Mm-hmm. I get to do fun stuff every day, all day long.
True.
Well, if I look at that path of being related to the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, you're around people in this really cool city of yours that people want to vacation in. I also live in a town, Long Beach, Long Island, New York, which most people go, man, I wish I could live here. And it's like, you can live in the beach town if you want to. Just most people don't ever take the steps to make that happen.
Right.
That's
Well,
true.
that's one thing. That's probably one of the reasons the podcast started originally, is because I started working down here right at 3 years ago now, I guess. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so just meeting so many people that have relocated here, and that's what makes this whole Gulf Coast area such a gem, because of all the different personalities, different talents, different, just all the microcosms that exist here. And it's been fun to pick people's brains, and then to be able to bring in other people from across the country with great talent. So, and we love networking. Obviously, you can tell we love to talk. So there's not an issue with that. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Your part of the country is definitely growing in an interesting way. One of my rants that people will hear is everything used to be New York, LA, Chicago. And now we're seeing other parts of the country have every single thing that were the signatures of New York, LA, and Chicago.
Yeah.
So it's more like, why wouldn't you go to Palm Beach, that area? Why wouldn't you go to most of Florida? It has sushi. It has the Broadway shows on tour. It has all the staples. Movies are being filmed in these places. The beaches are better than they are in New York and California, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Well, there's so many people that are key in the movie industry, music industry, that spend a lot of time here. So that brings a lot of influence here. And so we are able to enjoy a lot of things that probably even 30 years ago were not as prevalent here. So it makes a huge difference. So
yeah, isn't Brian Johnson from AC/DC near you guys?
Paul would have to answer that. Okay. We're
Paul,
not sure,
if
but
Paul
we're going to do a
doesn't
little
know-
research. If Paul doesn't know, we don't know. So yeah. No, but that isn't, we'll do some research.
Yeah, we'll check that.
Yeah.
We know some country singers are.
Sure. Well,
And
no
of course,
members of
Steve-
Van Halen, as far as I know. That's okay.
Just Steve Richmond.
Just
yeah.
Steve,
yeah. No. So, okay, your podcast. You said that how often do you record? Because I was surprised at how many episodes you do and how you put your podcast together.
I mean, don't necessarily confuse quality and quantity, but
No, yours are good. Don't kid yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I try and tape interviews 5-6 days a week, and sometimes my episodes are one full long episode that I cut down to the 28 to 29 minutes. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 where I'll go, okay, I'll use 12 minutes of that one, 6 minutes of that, 3 minutes of that, whatever it takes to make it fit the 28 to 29 minute thing that most of my stations kind of ask for. So we see what's interesting, what taped well. Sometimes you do a great interview and then you go, oh, the audio was terrible. And you go, what can you do about that? Then there's other times when you go, is this going to offend some of my stations that I use this? Because I talk from people from all walks of life, from all industries, and you go, well, this doesn't fit with that. What thematically can I do to make this work or keep evergreen stuff happening? So it's really you record it and you see what you got.
Do you ever submit, I'm sorry, some interviews to some stations and not the others? Or do you try to keep it all consistent?
I ideally make it all consistent, but if a station or two turns it down, I go, hey, use this one instead. And a couple of times things were rejected because it had profanity in it. Some stations care about that. Some, not every station cares about the language. And then sometimes someone would go, hey, you're promoting this too much. There's a call to action, and we can't have a call to action in the interview. So again, I go, hey, don't run that one, run this one instead. And I tape so much that I fortunately do have backups in place that are just as good.
Well, that's impressive.
Smart.
Yeah, and it is smart. Yes. Well, luckily with Paul and John, they do a great job with mine. So we've been very pleased. Yeah, we show up, they throw the mic on us and say, "You're late. Let's go."
It's a great looking setup that you have on top of that.
Oh.
Your show looks better than most podcasts I see, and a lot of TV shows I see as well.
Can you guys hear that? Kudos.
Yeah, that's thanks to John and Paul. They're great at what they do, for sure. So
on time, you have microphones that people can't see, all the works.
Well,
aren't we fancy?
Good, I know. Now their heads are going to be so big. So with them and Steve, we're in trouble. Yeah, no. But so what's in the works for you that you can share?
Well, I mean, the book coming out in January 2024, I don't know where that's going to land in terms of how much press I'm going to be doing. There's a couple of other books that I've explored doing and people I'm talking to. All that boils down to, what wouldn't I mind spending thousands of hours on and be passionate about?
Right.
So there's one or two things that I kind of love that I've heard, but I've learned, hey, don't talk about things before they happen.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah.
So there's that, but I'll keep doing this weekly show. I'll still do the articles that go live on Paltrocast.com, 5-6 days a week. A little while after we hang up, I'm interviewing an actor from the MGM Plus show called From. And I've done most of the cast on that. And then eventually we'll put that into an episode. And then there's the other PI stuff. And I better busy than bored.
I know that. I'm glad you said that. So tell us about the PI. How do you fit everything in? Because like I said, it's like peeling that onion. It's like, where did this come from?
I want to hear about the PI.
Yeah.
I'm nosy.
Well, for better and for worse, I'm one of those people who's a licensed private investigator, and case by case, every assignment's going to be totally different. Sometimes they want a comprehensive background check. Sometimes they want the social media check. Sometimes they want both of those. Sometimes you have to pull records. Sometimes you have to do surveillance. Sometimes you have to get someone to do surveillance. Sometimes, it's any list of things that people need that are legally sound, and I'll do that. So, hey,
if you have surveillance that's needed to be done here, you just let me know.
Oh, great.
I'm nosy.
That she is. No, I'm just kidding.
I'd have fun peeking around the corner.
Yeah, it's an interesting profession in that it actually applies my skills from my research background and my writing and client relations. It's not as different from entertainment and that stuff as you'd think.
Well, it's amazing how everything that you're doing all goes back to high school days and your interest, and how it's all evolved into different aspects. And that's pretty impressive, because you have done a great job of networking with some of the key people in the music industry, all types of media. So that's impressive. And to be able to bring it all together, that's good, because a lot of people are good at certain things, but then the whole bringing it together aspect is really where they kind of can't put it together. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Again, very kind words that you two keep throwing at me throughout our conversation here. And I think a lot of it has to do with not peaking in high school. A lot of people, they peak in high school. It's all downhill. And I had to learn a bunch of trades over the years, and now I finally feel like I'm firing on all cylinders the past couple of years. I didn't always feel that way.
Well, I understand that. I'm 63 and my sons are 37, 35, and my daughter's 31. And they're all the time like, Dad, can you just go somewhere and keep your mouth shut and not talk? And I'm like, no, I can't. So they know better. So they just know when to go with me and when not to go. So.
Well, I have a random question for you, Rick.
All right.
Does your name ever get you great hotel or
yes.
restaurant?
Yes,
especially before the internet was so prevalent. In fact, I was staying in Miami and I made the airline reservations. They're like, I've got Rick Steiner on the phone. I'm like, hey, I'm not the wrestler. And they're like, oh, it's okay. You can be, up front with us. I'm like, okay. So got bumped to first class. And then I'm staying at this hotel on the beach in South Beach. And I called to change my date. And they're like, oh, so you're staying with us when you do your pay-per-view bout in Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, I told the other guy, I am not who you think I am. They're like, we've got you upgraded to the penthouse suite. And for the next 3 years, while that management group owned the hotel, every time I went, they gave me the penthouse suite. And then a new ownership bought it, and they didn't.
They're like, Rick Steiner.
Yeah, they're like, you're gone. So, but yeah.
Well, it's flattering, but at the same time, the wrestler Rick Steiner's nickname was the dog-faced gremlin.
Yes.
So,
well, in
fact,
fact,
you know that?
No, yeah, but we were at a little. Where we had breakfast, and they have all these dollar bills on the wall, and they've got different framed people on the wall. And I look up, and there's a framed picture with Rick Steiner's face and name underneath it. So I, of course, had to have my picture taken with it, because I'm with.
He's Rick Steiner.
Yeah, and then Big Papa Pump, all of that. So yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, the other Rick Steiner's real name isn't even Rick Steiner. His last name's Reck Steiner.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So you're the only real Rick Steiner out there.
Yeah, his brother Scott, and they, my sons, when they were growing up, they were like, oh yeah, we're going to beat up everybody like we're the Steiner brothers. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all we need. Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Well, Darren, I tell you what, I have enjoyed this so much, and I apologize for us being a little late when we first got here and scrambled, but I've enjoyed it. I said,
can you believe our time's already out?
I know, it's crazy how quickly it goes. Yeah.
We need to do it again. Part 2.
Yeah. Okay, part 2 when the book comes out.
It would be my honor. You two have been wonderful hosts, and it's wonderful to finally connect after all this time.
Well, the same here. So tell people how they can, contact you or watch your podcast. Kind of give that little part right now. And
yeah, what's on the screen is pretty darn correct there. www.paltrocast.com, at Paltrowitz on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I think it's at Darren Paltrowitz on Facebook, but reach out to me. Happy to help if I can give you advice. Not that I want to give advice, but my book and all that is on Amazon. And it's the great.
Just reach out. I may not respond, but reach out. No, I'm just kidding.
The great folks like you who help me and my content out. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we can do anything for you down here. Definitely let us know for sure. So.
Awesome. Thanks, 30A.
You're welcome. So thank you for joining us for another episode of Lux Life Discovered. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, all major podcast platforms, 30A TV, our own channel there, and make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rick Steiner with Shannon Richmond, and we'll see you next time on Lux Life Discovered.
Check out Lux Life Discovered on Facebook and Instagram and on 30A.tv. See you next time on Lux Life Discovered.